Hi crystal balls, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for clicking on this video today. If this is your first time here, welcome. Please think about sticking around, liking, commenting, and subscribing. Everybody else, thank you from the bottom of my heart for being on this journey with me. I really appreciate that you would take a little bit of time out of your day to visit me in my itty bitty little corner of the internet. I really thank you guys. It is amazing. I don't know almost 200 people, so this is pretty cool for me. I want to ask everybody to take a moment to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Not just for myself. Go ahead and support your small businesses, your mom and pop places, your little YouTubers, your big YouTubers, whoever it is. It means the world to us having that little bit of interaction. Plus it helps us, and it is free. It takes about 15 seconds. Even if you want to just leave a hi on a comment, guys, that means the world to all of us. So take a moment to do that. Spread some cheer, spread some good karma, and we'll get into today's video. All right, so today's video was voted on by my Patreons, and I do have a list. So sometimes I don't necessarily have the mindset in order to get into certain cases. Today I found out about this case that happened in August of 2020 that I literally knew nothing about. Now, to be fair, we were having a pandemic, still kind of are, and I was sick. So yeah, I probably would have missed this case because I think I slept the entire month of August. So this case is about Marilane Carter. Now, I could be mispronouncing her name, and I apologize if I am. I tried to listen to several different interviews to hear exactly how they were pronouncing her name, but I had a very difficult time hearing. If you guys don't know, I'm a bit hard hearing, so it's sometimes difficult for me to hear and really get the name. So it sounds like Marilane Carter. So Marilane Carter went missing in August of 2020. She was last seen at home on August 1st. She was driving from her home in Kansas to Birmingham, Alabama. Now, here's the thing. I have read several different reports that contradict each other. And it's very interesting how quickly the story changed. In the very beginning of what I could find online, and again, I put sources out there. It's up to you if you deem them reliable or not. But the first set of story that came out was she left after deciding that she no longer wanted to fly out to Birmingham, Alabama, where her sister was, who was expecting her first child, I believe, and was getting close to her due date. And instead of flying the Southwest flight, she takes a nap and then decides that she wants to instead drive the entire way there. Now, a lot of people don't understand why that makes any sense. Quite frankly, it doesn't. It was probably cheaper for her to purchase the ticket through Southwestern. If you guys know Southwestern, at least in the United States, is a cheaper sometimes airline. Sometimes you can get really good fares that it wouldn't even touch the gas money that you would have to spend round trip to get there. So, sometimes it is more economic to fly. But this is also during a pandemic, and this is something that people keep forgetting. Again, this is going to be weird stuff that keeps getting brought up. But the first initial story was she went out and was going to assist her sister. A little bit after this story comes out, it was about 4 days that the new thing was that Marilane was going to be treated for mental illness in a facility somewhere in Birmingham, Alabama. And instead of flying like she originally was going to. She decided to drive, and she ended up leaving 8 o'clock at night, August 1st, 2020, which was the last time she was seen by her family, but not the last time that she was seen or heard from. So this is a very odd thing. I have a whole list of odd things, but right now, let's just kind of talk about the timeline as best that I can. This is what I've gotten from, different media sources and things, the best timeline that I can come up with that seems to be generally agreed upon. So, July 31st, she books her flight, Southwest Airline, goes to sleep, wakes up, decides to drive. She left at 8:15 p.m. at her home in Kansas. Her credit cards show that she went to McDonald's and during her drive, and she also had phone calls to her mother and her husband on the way. At 3:37 a.m., she checks into the Quality Inn, West Plains, Missouri hotel. She checked out at 6:08 a.m. So approximately not even 2.5 hours later. Very, very weird. After that, we're missing 11 hours. 11 hours is completely missing. No phone calls, no dings on her credit card, nothing. Later on that night, this is before 8 o'clock, so it looks like it's about 7 or 8 o'clock at night, not 100% sure. She goes to a Shell gas station near I-55 on Memphis, where she fills up, and she also goes inside and gets a glass of ice water. Now, she was on the phone with her husband and the call dropped. She was also on the phone with her mother, and that phone call dropped. Prior to that phone call dropping, Marilane said to her mother a few times that she couldn't hear her very well, and that she was possibly lost on a dirt road. So, this last bit of information that anybody ever heard from Marilane again was at 8:02 p.m. So, the next day, which I believe was August 3rd, was when, yes, on August 3rd, when Marilane didn't show up to somewhere, we don't exactly know where she was supposed to show up to, then her husband called her in missing because nobody had heard from her since 8:02 p.m. that night. Now, this is an unfortunate thing that happens in many missing people's cases, especially if you are above the age of majority 18 or 19 in most states in the United States. A person leaves on their own volition, and it does seem like they have a destination in mind, but they didn't arrive to that destination in an appropriate amount of time. And Marilane definitely didn't arrive to this mysterious destination in an appropriate time. We'll get to this whole thing in a minute. So police don't necessarily consider this a missing persons case. They think that the person has left on their own volition, and they probably want to disappear. Now, most people did not believe that. Marilane had 3 children. At that point, I believe her youngest was 2, about ready to turn 3. And she was married to her husband, who was named Adam. So it didn't necessarily seem like she had jetted away, and people would, say that she wouldn't leave her children like that. But there was this whole mental illness thing that came in later. This wasn't part of the initial reports. It came out later. So I don't know if this was an excuse, which I think it was, or it was a tactic for the family to get people to move. And that's a possibility. If someone is mentally ill and, you know, you, you believe that they're mentally ill, they're missing, and you're afraid, sometimes saying something like that will get people to move quicker. But we don't even know if that was true. We don't. So odd is getting odder. Okay, guys. So Uncle Larry. Now this is Adam's, her husband's Uncle Larry, found her body. How? Well, apparently he went off of I-55 in Memphis around the Shell station for the last place that we knew she was seen for sure, and saw 3 storage containers. Now, the police did confirm that they had been around that area and, in fact, had sweeped it and cleared it, but they never went into any of those containers. The containers are on private property, but there are some cases when it comes to a person being in significant danger that private property rules do not apply. This may be one of them depending on the state that you live in. And since this was something that had happened over multiple states, it actually went into the hands of the FBI. So the FBI trumps all of the rules that are going on in the area. They very well could have gone into these crates. The police admit that they never searched them because they just didn't find a reason. They didn't think a car could get in there. Well, fine, but did you think a person could get in there? I mean, it was a huge, huge mistake, and the police officers in that vicinity do admit that this was a huge mistake, and they didn't know why they didn't search it. So, old Uncle Larry here, this is very weird, doesn't know if one of these storage containers are open or closed, but he opens one up and sees what he believes to be Mary Lane's car, and it looks like there is somebody there. He calls the authorities, and unfortunately, 2 weeks later, on this day, this was Marilane Carter, and she was pronounced dead at the scene. So, it seems, according to them, that the door was locked. Both doors, so I'm guessing it was a 2-door, were locked, and the key was in the on position. So she died of asphyxiation due to carbon monoxide poisoning. Maybe. Of course, they say that there could be absolutely no foul play at all. This is what the police had said and everything. But I don't know how well you guys know about this type of thing, but since I'm trained in this area, there very well could have been somebody else in the car. They exited through the trunk or the boot, however you want to call it, and got away very easily. It is very easy to crawl back, pull things down, pull them back up. It'll be like no one ever knew. And you can pop trunks now from the inside, because I think almost every car after 2000 something has a safety measure in it that you can pop the trunk from the inside to get out for these very reasons. For the reasons of people getting kidnapped. I've been thrown in a car before in training, and It's been a while, you know, it was police and everything were there and they were helping us, but I had to get out of the trunk of the car, and you know, I was able to do it. And this is me with this little bit of knowledge here. Trust me, somebody who is not the best person and probably knows more about this stuff can get out really easy. So we're going to talk about, that's kind of that's the general amount of information about this case. I know this is going to be a long video, guys, and I'm sorry. So the strange things about this case, the first one, of course, is the mental illness aspect. Supposedly, Marilane was going to go to Birmingham, Alabama, because she wanted to be treated in a facility where she was once the hospital chaplain. She worked there for 4 years, and instead of being around her home and her family, she wanted to be a place like this that was comfortable. Now, her brother said it was never confirmed that Marilane was ever going to seek treatment at the University of Alabama at Birmingham or Grandview or anywhere. There was nowhere expecting her. So how did they know that she didn't show up somewhere else? I mean, nobody was expecting her. That's the thing. Her sister didn't really seem to be too talkative about this situation either. I apologize. I only saw a small bit of information about her sister, who was indeed actually pregnant at the time, and they had spoken about seeing each other, but I don't know to the extent of, I'm planning on being here on August 3rd or beforehand. Honestly, this is an 11-hour trip, and it took well over 11 hours with an 11-hour gap of time in here that we have no idea what happened. What happened during those missing hours, we just don't know. We don't know. I want to give you a very interesting thing here. Uncle Larry, this is a place that he would have known quite well. He worked for, at least at one point, at BNSF Railways, which moved storage containers that were various states of empty, full, half empty, you know, it didn't matter. This was on his public Facebook page on the day after he announced to the world that he had found his niece, and this, or, you know, I guess it's his niece-in-law. He found her. He had taken this down from Facebook. Now, looking into BNSF Railways, you can search, and I do have the video. I'll link that below. There is a particular good person that did all of this work who was able to show that Uncle Larry would have had the route that is closest to I-55 where Marilane ended up at. So he probably had been in the vicinity many times before and was very familiar with the area. It's fishy, guys. It's fishy because these crates, these cargo things were away. They weren't by the tracks. They weren't, you know, somewhere super close. They were back away and, again, on private property. So it just, I don't know. I have a bad feeling about it. Honestly, when I first read and heard about the case, the first thing that I thought of was the uncle and the husband. I'm sorry. I know it's stereotypical, but I really feel like the uncle had a lot to do with this. Her husband, Adam, was the head pastor at Leadworth Baptist Church. Now, why is this important? I'm in June of, actually, it was June 20th, 2020. Marilane's name was in the church bulletin of Saint Michael the Archangel in Leadwood. This is a Catholic church, and the program was congratulating people about the rite of Catholic, I don't know the word, initiation, something like that. It's like they've taken the steps to become Catholic. They're already through everything that they had to do. And this was a congratulations to them. Her name was in there. It clearly was her. She had converted to Catholicism. And it is odd because her husband is the lead of a Baptist church. And, it's odd. But people were saying, oh, no, 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 she didn't convert or anything like that. She was an active person in this church. And the church, when they found out that Marilane was missing, they promoted her missing, meaning they were trying to help. They were trying to help find her. This was all on their webpage, and you were able to read the story and see that they were desperately trying to find their friend. And I don't know what else proof that you need that she was part of that church, but she was. Another odd fact is that I didn't get a name of the person who said this, but this was a hotel worker who was there that night and said that Marilane came in and she seemed very calm, fine, nothing wrong. But when she checked out, she seemed nervous. And this person believed that she may have been followed. And there is a piece of footage from the hotel where you can clearly see her coming in and you can clearly see her driving out. And honestly, it does look like there's somebody that flips around and follows her. But that doesn't mean anything. That could be just a person flipping around to, they missed whatever they were going to and they were making a U-turn or whatever and going down the road. And one had absolutely nothing to do with the other. We just don't know. Last call again with Mom was Marilane saying that she was lost on a dirt road, and it didn't seem like that she was distressed outside of being anxious that she was lost. Now, some people like to say that Marilane should have known that area very, very well, but keep in mind, it's dark. It's after 8 o'clock at night. She got on a dirt road. You can get lost in your hometown, folks. Things happen. And the thing is, she hadn't lived there in a very long time. And I have no evidence that she was going back and forth on a regular basis for her to know this path very, very well. You can get lost. Things happen. Something happened to her, obviously. And did she all of a sudden decide to commit suicide? I'm sorry, trigger warning. Trigger warning. I put that at the beginning too. Trigger warning. Did she decide to commit suicide at this point after speaking to her husband and her mom? Were those dropped calls because she was in the storage container thing, the cargo container? Those are interesting points and theories, but no. The interesting thing is that this whole thing with the mental illness has seemed to become a story, a lesson, a warning. And the weird thing is, like I said, the mental illness part came in later. And guys, I suffer from mental illness, and I am 120% okay talking about it. And you guys should be okay with it too. There are resources out there, guys. I'm going to leave resources in the box here, the description box at the end. You guys are all well needed and loved, and your illness is valid, okay? The reason I'm questioning this is because of the amount of time difference that they said from the beginning that she was going to see her sister, to all of a sudden adding mental illness on it. What I've seen, it was about a 3 to 4 day difference. That's huge, especially if somebody has a mental illness. They may need help fast. So they didn't get the help fast. The thing that I'm seeing is people using this as a lesson to other pastoral wives. And this is what I saw in a Christian publication called hopeforpastorwives.com. You guys can look that up yourself. But this is a letter called Dear Marilane and Everyone. And this is telling people about mental illness, which is great, and how you have support, and maybe how people who are pastors' wives need a support system. Great, guys, that's great. But I really, honestly, 100% believe that Marilane was not necessarily mentally distressed, or, you know, a good husband would not have let her leave. You know, he wouldn't have been somewhere else. He would have made sure that she stayed. He would have called the police well before that she left. You're not going to let a mentally distressed person behind the wheel of a car for 11 hours and just hope that she's going to get back on the other side and be okay when she reaches Birmingham and checks herself into a facility that isn't even expecting her. Now, yes, there are times that you can go into these types of situations and check yourself in. It doesn't always mean that you're going to get in right away. But I think because someone like Marilane, who was a chaplain in a hospital like this, understands how the situation goes. Yes, you would call ahead most likely in a situation like this, especially when her purpose supposedly was going there and seeking mental help. Now, when was questioned about what her mental health was like, the answer was she couldn't sleep. Okay? All I'm getting out of this is she had sleeping problems. Maybe she was going for a sleep study would have made more sense. Especially if she was doing it as a favor, as a friend of a doctor or an old friend or whoever. Like, yeah, I fit that study, man. I don't sleep. The girl had insomnia. It doesn't mean that she was mentally disrupted or deranged at all. It could mean that. But guys, none of this is making sense at all.